Hello there. As someone who's long been interested in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, I've made two documentaries about the British child's disappearance. I've also talked on countless TV and radio shows about her disappearance. I have never subscribed to the official narrative of an abduction. And generally, I ignore the media noise around it because it's just about exploiting her name and making money from her. But this week's media noise, I cannot ignore because it's so widespread. It's such a massive lie that it is unconscionable for me to ignore it. And that is last night, BBC's Panorama ran a further documentary on the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. It was called Prime Suspect, Who Took Madeleine McCann? Now, it's very difficult for me to say that title without smiling, and I mean that in no egregious way towards Madeleine McCann, but the truth has been staring everybody in the face for an awful long time. And so I just find that title very interesting. So the idea was Richard Bilton, a BBC reporter who has previously covered the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, traipsed across Portugal and Germany following the prime suspect, Christian B. Now, Bilton has form for mis and disinformation around this case. He previously claimed during Panorama's 10th anniversary into the disappearance of Madeleine McCann that the Smith family had changed their minds about their sighting. If you're not familiar, the Smith family are a family from Ireland who were at their holiday home in Portugal on the night that Madeleine was reported missing, and they saw a man carrying a child of which they described as 60 to 80% sure that it was Madeleine's father, Gerry, who was carrying the child. Richard Bilton claimed that they had changed their mind about this, and that was not true. That had not happened. It was also Richard Bilton, who I cover in my film, Madeleine McCann, Public Relations and Saving Reputations, who received information from Justin McGuinness, who was the McCann's very well paid PR, and she gave him police information regarding Kate McCann's police interview that was confidential. He has this whole thing of constantly portraying the McCanns as victims. And as a journalist who has looked into this story, I can tell you that that is an incredibly simplistic and partisan take of the story. So PR, the public relations around Madeleine, has gone into overdrive yesterday and today. So the BBC went even further and claimed that a delegation of senior Portuguese police officers travelled from Lisbon to London earlier this year, where they met and apologised to Gerry McCann. Now, it's not entirely clear why, if that should have happened, why they should have apologised to Mr. McCann alone, or indeed why they should have apologised to Mr. McCann at all. Let's bear in mind that even though this has now been repeated throughout mainstream media, The Guardian, The Times, all saying the same thing, police travelled to the UK and apologised to the McCanns, we only have Richard Bilton and the BBC's word for it. That is not to be trusted. I could literally sit outside a building and say people inside there did A, B, C, and D with absolutely no direct quotes. The PJ didn't give any quotes. In fact, the PJ have released a statement which says absolutely nothing about any kind of apology. Do not trust the BBC, especially when it comes to children. And I'll tell you this, as someone who has investigated Kate and Gerry McCann, they are people who love good publicity. So if the Portuguese police had apologised to them, I'm shocked that they didn't come out and release a press release about it. Something doesn't add up, right? Something doesn't add up. And furthermore, if the Portuguese police had apologised to Gerry McCann, why? Why have you apologised to a man who, by his own admission of negligence, his daughter is missing? Very strange policing going on here. And talking about strange policing, why is our own Metropolitan Police still continuing with the £14 million taxpayer-funded Operation Grange? It's a crime that occurred in another country, and British police haven't even investigated the 9 adults who were with Madeleine on the night she was reported missing. Look, it's a simple fact that most child abductions are carried out at the hands of someone who knows the child. So why have the McCanns and their friends not been properly investigated by the British police? Instead, what we have is the Richard Biltons of this world given massive platforms such as the BBC in which to carry out their propaganda, which is then repeated by all of these prostitutes across mainstream media. Further, Richard Bilton's task for this current panorama is clear, and that is you must nail Christian B. Christian B, of course, is that reprehensible man who is in a German prison, clearly a horrible man, horrible history involved in rape and violence. But the desperation of the German police and mainstream media to nail him as not only the suspect, but the man who killed Madeleine McCann is outrageous. They are literally trying to get a crime to fit an individual. Hans Wolters, the German prosecutor, is nothing but a publicist. The man adores publicity. I believe, it is my firm belief, absolutely, that he threw his hat in the ring and saying that in one of his prisons is the man who took and killed Madeleine, because Hans Wolters wanted a slice of the publicity that comes along with anything to do with the investigation of Madeleine McCann. None of these people that I'm discussing today are to be trusted with the investigation of Madeleine McCann, right? None of them. And, you know, the thing is, I suppose from the perspective of like the BBC and Richard Bilton, anything is worth a shot, right? Even though there's nothing for them to go on to link Bruckner to Madeleine McCann. And when Richard Bilton actually asked Hans Wolters whether he believed Madeleine was dead, the man looked like he had just swallowed all his lies in one great gulp, right? He just literally looked absolutely insane. So the reason I'm saying this today is I think it is absolutely reprehensible the way people report on this story. It will not help to find out what happened to Madeleine McCann when we are being told PR publicity statements about the McCanns being apologized to, about a man in a German prison being responsible for the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. The truth is out there, right? But you won't find it on a BBC programme, and you won't find it in The Guardian or The Times or any of mainstream media who love repeating this nonsense. They are all complicit in the cover-up. I say it here and now. I don't care. That is a fact, right? It is absolutely a fact. What about this nonsense that Richard Bilton found? A woman who had known Christian B when he was a teenager, and she told Bilton that Christian B was in a rebellious gang when he was a teenager. She said they were very rebellious and destroyed a lot of stuff. They were always out and about, escaping through windows and gone. That has been repeated all across mainstream media like it means anything. I don't know about you, but I was a pretty rebellious teenager myself, but that doesn't make me responsible for the disappearance of the world's most famous missing child. What we saw last night was a travesty. The BBC should hang their heads in shame, but I bet Kate and Gerry McCann are absolutely thrilled, because why wouldn't they be? Let's be clear, this is public relations at its absolute finest. It is such a thin, lightweight reporting that Bilton has done. And so, yes, once again, the BBC have done an amazing PR job on behalf of Kate and Gerry McCann, and the mainstream media followed suit with uncorroborated, unsubstantiated quotes from Richard Bilton, who is not and never was a recognised authority on this story. And it's fair to ask, once again, who really cares about finding out the truth of Madeleine McCann? Because let me tell you, it is not the British Broadcasting Corporation and all the other prostitutes who repeat their stories without checking. Madeleine McCann is the victim here. It is Madeleine McCann, if she was still alive, who people should be apologising to.